Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. This is Thailand Bound. If you haven't been here before, I talk about all things Thailand and my name is Peter. Right, it's a Saturday, it's story time. A quick apology for last week. If you're a regular follower to this channel, you know I wasn't around last Saturday. I've moved into my new apartment just off Sukhumvit here in central Bangkok, and that took up a lot. It took up all my time actually. In 3 years, I've put out stories every Saturday. Last Saturday was the first Saturday that I never actually uploaded any stories. Unfortunately, the clock got the better of me and I just ran out of time, simple as that. But the good news is I've now moved in. This is my full-time apartment. It's very, very nice. And I'm going back to the UK at the end of February to sort out this sale of my house. It's still going through. Hopefully that won't take too long now. And then I'll be back out here and then that'll be it. Okay, so I don't want to waste your time. We're going to jump straight into these stories. I've got 4 good stories for you today. And let's get straight into the first one.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I have a story that I think you and your audience might find entertaining. I changed the names of everyone in the story, so feel free to read it as it is. I was recently in Pattaya for the first time and thought I would start off with a bang. After arriving in Bangkok and getting a ride to Pattaya, shout out to Nam's taxi service, I changed my clothes and headed down to Walking Street. I did a little bit of research beforehand and already made a list of places I wanted to visit. My first stop was a well-known go-go bar that I'm sure most people that have been to Pattaya have visited. Even after watching lots of YouTube videos on this subject, I was blown away by the number of beautiful girls dancing on stage. I was ushered into a booth by one of the staff and I ordered a drink. After 20 minutes of checking out the scene, I chose the girl that I wanted to buy a drink for. Like I mentioned, I already did my research from watching your videos and similar videos out there, so I was familiar with the concept of ladies' drinks, bar fines, along with short and long times. I guess I was on a high from just arriving in Pattaya, but I decided to go off script, so everything that happened afterwards was not mentioned in any video I saw. I asked one of the staff to get the girl I wanted, and after a few minutes, her and her friends sat down beside me. Let's call them Jib and Nan. I was in heaven with 2 beautiful Thai ladies sitting by me. The only problem was that the staff told me they were both new and did not speak any English. I didn't think this was a big deal since I had my phone with me and had Google Translate. After a few minutes of the usual conversation, what's your name, where you come from, how long you stay in Pattaya, I decided to just bar fine one but bar fine both of them. I decided to go long time since I didn't want to be rushed, so I called the mama-san over and I paid the bar fines for the pair of them. For those interested, at this particular place, ladies' drinks are around 200 to 300 baht each. The bar fine was 1,300 baht each. Short time is 3,000 baht and long time is 5,000 baht. My total bill to take them out was 12,600 baht. Good thing I was well prepared and had the cash on hand. I know that these prices are higher than average, but I was willing to pay for more quality if you can catch my drift. After they changed to their street clothes, I paid for a taxi back to my hotel. I should have known something was off when we all sat down on my couch and they were acting a little bit funny. We had some more awkward conversation, though Google Translate, and then Nan announced that she was hungry. We decided to walk over to the nearest 7-Eleven to grab some food. The 2 of them got microwave pasta and some drinks. Wanting to be a gentleman, I paid for their meals. We were back to my room and they sat at the counter to eat while I sat on the couch watching TV. This went on for about 30 minutes or so, and I was getting a little bit nervous that we were going to run out of time. This went on for about 30 minutes, so I was getting a little bit nervous that we were going to run out of time or that they were trying to run the clock on me before we did anything. I invited them to my room and asked them if they wanted to take a shower, which they both declined. I thought this was a little odd, as I was told Thai girls take up to 3 showers a day and are very clean. But I went with it and started to initiate aerobics. They both were shocked and tried to explain to me why there would be no aerobics. Their explanation wasn't coming through, so eventually they both said it was the time of the month and left it at that. I was pretty confused and frustrated after hearing this, since I knew they were lying, so I told them we were going back to the bar to speak with a mama-san, which really set them off. We had an awkward ride back on a BART bus, back to Walking Street, I made them pay the total cost for the ride, which I admit was a little childish on my part. We went back to the bar and I explained the situation to the Mama-san and asked for a refund. I learned that when you take two girls out, it's just a party with them and no aerobics is included. The girls should have explained this to me beforehand, but since they were new and didn't speak any English, they didn't mention this. She asked me if I wanted to spend time with just one of them instead, but I turned down this offer as the whole situation left me feeling sour about the both of them. The Mama-san told them off for this mistake and asked them to return my money. Luckily, they agreed, so I got 10,000 baht back. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the money for the bar fine back as I still had to pay it since I took the two of them out of the bar. I think nobody was really happy about the situation, so I guess that's how I know it was fair compromise. I decided to stay to see if there was someone else I wanted to take out, but it was getting late into the night, so the pickings were getting slim. I went home alone that night, and that's how my first night ended in Pattaya. I reflected on what happened the next day and remembered what you have said numerous times about how girls are just doing this bar work as a job to support their families back home. I thought about my behavior and I wasn't too happy about how I acted. That night, I went back to the bar and called the Mama-san and the two girls over and explained how I didn't like how things ended the previous night. I gave each girl a 2,000 baht tip for their troubles, the money for the baht bus ride back to the bar, and I bought everyone a drink to bury the hatchet. I'm not sure how they took this gesture, but I felt better about what I did. A few days later, I bar fined Jib and we had a lovely time together. I learned about her family, her hopes, her dreams, and what she plans to do in the future. Remember, these girls are just doing a job and that mistakes can and will happen. Who hasn't messed up before on a new job? There are good learning opportunities, and I'm sure these girls won't make the same mistake again. I also learned an important lesson about discussing with the girls exactly what I'm looking for before bar finding them. This has helped me out on more than one occasion. The rest of my time in Pattaya was filled with amazing experiences, and I look forward to going back. Well, I would say that the Mama-san and the girls actually lied to him because I've never heard of a guy taking two girls out of a bar for anything else but aerobics. I mean, it's just normal. You pay for one, you get one. You pay for two, you get two. I think what happened is, I don't know if the girls were new or not. They were probably old hands, and they were probably trying it on with him. They probably could tell he wasn't very experienced, and they just tried to get money for nothing, basically. But it didn't work out. And they actually came off quite well, didn't they? Because they would have got the money for the bar fine because they didn't return that to him. And he gave them both a 2,000 baht tip. So uh, the Mama-san had to save face. So she said that, the girls didn't know. But that's absolutely a lie. But he is right where, if you do meet a girl and you want to go back to your hotel and have a game of Connect Four or something like that, then it's very, very important to lay it out on the table. They're working. They're not going to get shy or embarrassed, and you shouldn't either. And then that way, there's no mistakes or misunderstandings. Okay, right. Let's jump straight into story number two. I have always had an attraction to Asian girls, and for years I wanted to take a trip to the Philippines in the hopes that I would meet a nice girl or at least have some fun. American girls never really worked out for me as they tend to judge a man on the money he makes, the car he drives, and the real estate he owns. By 2018, I was doing well in my nursing career and had the funds for a 3-week trip to Angeles City and Manila, Philippines. I met a Korean American guy called Sammy online who lived in Angeles City, and he operated a chat group for men from abroad around the world coming to Angeles City who needed advice and guidance for newbies like myself. He earned a commission from the guys he could bring into go-go bars as he had an agreement with most of the owners. People like me were referred to as cherry boys. Being my first time in Asia, after 32 hours of airports and flying, I arrived at my Angeles City hotel and took a nap to recover from the lack of sleep. By 5 p.m., I was instructed by Sammy to meet at Monsoons, a local go-go bar. When I walked in, I could not believe what I was seeing. So many beautiful girls dancing on stage, and every one of them was staring at me. I could feel the excitement building at what I was seeing for the first time, and I must have had Cherry Boy written on my forehead. Thankfully, Sammy and a small group of the chat group guys came over to greet me and welcome me for my first visit. As the music is blasting and while I take in the sights of the skimpy dressed dancing girls, they are giving me advice on bar fines and how short time and long time work. As the liquid confidence is taking effect, I fancied one particular dancer. She noticed that I was fixated on her and she kept smiling at me. After a few more beers, I walked up to the stage and I gave her money, a very rookie thing to do. To my regret, she ended up with another guy who she seemed to know. Sammy and the guys left for another bar and I stayed at Monsoon's. The beautiful waitress called Lani, who had been serving drinks to me, asked if I wanted another beer. I said sure. Would you like a drink as well? Yes, she replied, and when she returned to my surprise, she sat next to me and very, very closely. Needless to say, I felt so good. After small talk, I asked if I could treat her to some food and drinks after her shift. She said that she could end her shift now. I didn't realize waitresses could be bar fined as well. We had a fantastic evening together, and even better aerobics session way into the early hours of the morning. Moving forward, I cancelled the second leg of my excursion to Manila, fortified my hotel money, and stayed with Lani every single day of my 3 week trip. I was required to pay her a bar fine every day, in fact. I had no problem with this as she was a lot of fun. My 3 weeks with Lani were fantastic. Even though I wanted a little free time to myself to visit other go-go bars, I never had the heart to tell her this. On the night I had to depart home, she cried and was welling up. I was welling up myself. It was a difficult goodbye, but I told her I would return soon. Lani and I kept in touch via video chat. After 6 months of working, I explained to Lani the dates I could return in 2019, but my employer would only allow me 2 weeks off work instead of three. This made Lani angry as she wanted me to stay for another 3 weeks. I was quite surprised by her unreasonable demands as I had never seen this side of Lani before. I had an unfortunate night in September 2019. I was involved in a small car accident. I was arrested for drinking and driving even though I had not been drinking. I blew zeros on the breathalyzer but refused to give the police a urine sample as I have never heard of this and did not trust them. I lost my license and now had to deal with the legalities and hiring an attorney. I explained to Lani my situation as I could not go to the Philippines to see her. Rather than show me sympathy, she gave me an attitude for not being able to visit her. COVID hit and everything came to a stop, including putting my legal troubles behind me. Lani still kept in touch periodically, but eventually she met an American expat and our correspondence ceased. I have wonderful memories of Lani and my Philippine holiday, but maybe it's best that she found a man to support her and I'm still single. My legal troubles are finally behind me, and I now, with the experience I've gained from the Philippines and YouTube channels such as yours, Peter, I think I'll have a great trip to Thailand in February 2023. Well, let's hope so. But guys, look, just remember, when you go into these bars and go-go bars and you meet up with these girls, of course they're lovely, they're easy to get attached to, but they're working and they see you as just you're a commodity, nothing more than that. And you might think you are, you might think you can develop something out of that, but if you want to get a proper girlfriend, just look elsewhere. There's plenty of shopping malls and retail outlets and markets you can go and look. But if you're gonna take a girl out of a bar, it doesn't matter what you think. She's going to go to the highest bidder. Okay, right. We're going to jump into number three, and this story might be a little bit controversial. It's on the same theme as the bar girl thing, but what the guy talks about, as I say, could be a little bit controversial. You can leave your comments in the description, but I haven't changed any of it really, other than cleaning it up a little bit. So the story, as usual, has been sent to me, and I'm just reading it out as is. Okay. My name is Dave. I come from a small village in Wales. It's quite safe and it has lots of beautiful countryside, but it's incredibly boring with just one pub in the village. I've been visiting Thailand for the past 15 years on my own, and I've always enjoyed my time in the country. I first discovered Thailand with a bunch of friends from our village. We went out there on a cheap package deal many years ago. I fell in love with Thailand and have been going back there at least 2 times a year. What I really enjoy about Thailand the most is the relaxed atmosphere with lots of smiles and friendly faces. You just don't get that where I live back home. Okay, here is my short story. It proves that even with lots of experience, you can still get caught out. I am 65 years old now and still in good health. I'm single and I like to meet with the ladies when I visit Pattaya, but I have a golden rule that I set out for myself. I never try to date a lady under 40 years of age, especially if I want to spend some quality time with her and make her a holiday girlfriend. I think this is quite a sensible rule, as what would you talk with her about? She's a younger girl, you're not going to have much in common. With such an age gap, it would be difficult, and I don't think I would enjoy my time. Of course, I'm not talking about one night stands, I'm talking about spending several days, if not weeks, with the same girl. So, how did I mess up? I hear you cry. Well, let me explain. When I went to visit Pattaya, I have my regular bars that I like to go to. One particular bar where everybody knows me and which feels like a second home, I like to play pool with the girls who are very good players. I always leave them a decent tip, so they're always happy to see me and play pool with me. The owner of the bar is a lady of about 50. She's quite attractive, but she's obviously seen better days. I suspect she's an ex-bar girl or go-go dancer who got lucky ending up with a bar. Has she fleeced some poor unfortunate Farang in the past to get to where she is today? We'll never know. Anyway, she's friendly enough and always buys me a drink. Most of the girls working in the bar are well-seasoned bar girls who have been around the block more than once, the average age being around 40. On a recent visit to Pattaya, I noticed a new girl who looked quite young. So out of curiosity, I spoke to the owner and asked about the girl. Who is she and where has she come from, as she seems quite young? The owner went on to tell me that she is the daughter of a friend who is there just to make some extra cash from drinks and never goes out with customers ever, and she was just 22 years old. Fair enough, and I never gave the matter any more thought. On this last trip, I was in Pattaya for around a month. I would visit my regular bar, but most evenings, and have one or two games of pool if I was moving on. But many nights, I spent the entire night in the bar as I really liked the staff, and they had a good pool table. While playing pool, I noticed a steady stream of men would come into the bar, sit with a young girl, and buy her drinks. On average, two or three would come into the bar when they seen her. The story was always the same. They would walk past the bar, spot this girl, come in, buy her several drinks, and leave quite disappointed. Some of them even getting quite angry and storming off because she would not be bar fined. In the earlier part of the evening, when the bar was quiet, the young girl would play pool with me. She knew I wasn't interested in anything more than playing pool, and I always bought her a drink and tipped her. Her English wasn't brilliant, but after many trips to Thailand, my Thai has become better. I wouldn't pretend that I'm fluent, but I do understand quite a bit. Sometimes after a game or two of pool, we would just sit together and talk as she seemed to trust me as I was a regular and never tried any funny business. During one of these chats, I asked her how she felt about older men wanting to take her out of the bar. She seemed to totally understand the situation and didn't really give it a lot of thought. I guess she had been well groomed by the older girls who work in the same bar. She went on to tell me that she didn't really like working in the bar and that she would be leaving and going to Bangkok after a couple of weeks. She had promised the owner that she would see the month out. Apparently, she was going to work in a factory in Bangkok. I asked her, isn't that a low paid job compared to what you're making now? She said yes, but she didn't care as she hated the nightlife scene and what she did to earn money taking drinks from strange men. She actually came across as a really nice girl. I enjoyed her company and it was interesting hearing her honesty, but something happened to me this time around. It was almost as if she had cast a spell on me that I couldn't get out of. Let me explain. I'm going to call her Knock. Not her real name, of course, but this name seems to be one of the most common names I hear in the bars. It's hard to explain, but I was suddenly infatuated with Knock. This might sound simple, but I actually think I fell in love with her right there. But not in a physical way. I just wanted to win her over like no other guy had managed to do. It almost became a challenge that I had to overcome. So from that moment on, the relationship between Knock and myself changed. Your viewers might not believe this, but I wasn't really interested in getting her back to my hotel. It was more of the challenge for me to get her to the point that she would say yes. I was already one step ahead of the game as Knock felt comfortable with me and of course was very familiar with me playing pool with her most nights. I have to mention at this point that all of the guys who had come into the bar and bought her drinks had tried to get close with her, but she always sat with a gap between her and the customer. At times, she looked extremely uncomfortable, and I honestly think it was difficult for her sometimes. Whenever I would go into the bar, I was like a schoolboy when I spotted Knock. She would approach me with a pool cue in hand. I would make an excuse and say I was tired and I just wanted to sit down and have a drink, but I'd like to buy her a drink as well. Over the next week or so, I made it quite clear to her that I found her attractive and cute and enjoyed being close to her. I actually felt quite ashamed of myself with the age gap, but I couldn't help it. I just enjoyed her company. Eventually, it got to the point where she would sit extremely close to me. She had no problem with me putting my arm around her, and at times she would rest her hand on my knee. She'd never done this with any other customer. I'd been there most nights. I even got to the point where she was comfortable to give me a close hug every now and again. As I said earlier, I found this situation a challenge, bearing in mind that she hadn't been close with anybody. I will say, for the record again, I wasn't interested in taking her back to my room. I just wanted to get to the point where if I had, she would say yes. I don't know why, I can't explain it. It's one of the strangest situations I've found myself in. So now, here I was, several weeks in, and Nock is very comfortable with me, and she was really opening up, telling me lots of her inner thoughts. We petted like teenagers, and I enjoyed her company immensely. On one particular night, when I visited her bar, I wanted to push it to see how far I could go with it. So after several drinks and the usual petting session, I asked her if I could pick her up in the afternoon and take her to Beach for food. Without hesitation, she said yes, wrapped her arms around me, and gave me the most incredible hug with a massive smile from ear to ear. I felt so satisfied that I had brought this situation to this point. I felt I had taken this shy girl who was very uncomfortable with her customers to the point where she would actually meet me and spend an afternoon with me at the beach. Who knows where it might have gone from there? I'm pretty sure I can guess, but I put the brakes on there and then. That night, I left her bar on a high. I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I was looking forward to an afternoon at the beach. But that night in my hotel room, I looked at myself in the mirror, and the spell that had suddenly been put on me in this situation left me right there and then. I hadn't arranged a time and day to pick Knock up, so there were no issues with letting her down the following day. But what I did do was return to the bar in the evening. The first thing I did was tell her I wanted a game of pool. She had a strange look on her face as if to say, I'm confused. After several games of pool, we sat down at our regular table. I took her hand and began to pour out my feelings. I began by telling her she was a beautiful young girl who had her whole life ahead of her and she shouldn't waste her time on people like me who wouldn't always be around. I tried to explain to her as best as I can what I was feeling, but basically I told her I'd made a mistake. I should have never tried to get so closely involved with her. She said something to me that I will never forget and will haunt me for the rest of my life. Tears started to pour down her face. She went on to tell me that she had never been treated so kindly by anyone in her life. She told me that she loved me, but not in a physical way. She said I was like the father she had never had. Honestly, I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom. I nearly burst into tears myself right there and then. I felt so ashamed of myself. How had this situation developed? A 65-year-old man from Wales falling in love with a 20-year-old girl from Thailand. I felt awful. The guilt overcome me at that moment, but I couldn't stay in the bathroom all night. I dusted myself and I put my best foot forward and I tried my best to look normal. When I got back to the table, the owner of the bar was sitting with Knock. She asked me what had happened as she couldn't get any sense out of Knock. I'd had enough of lies and playing games, and I wanted to be brutally honest and tell the owner of the bar what I had done. She sat and listened to me and didn't interrupt me at once. She let me tell the entire story as to what had happened between Knock and myself. Honestly, I was expecting a beer bottle across my head, or at the very least being run out of the bar by all of the other girls. This female bar owner must have had a very colourful life because not only did she not hit me across the head with a beer bottle, but she asked me to sit down on the sofa on the other side of Knock and told her staff to bring me a beer. She was an old hand. She had seen this situation time and time again. It was just business. Of course, Knock was closer to her than the other girls, but they only knew I was a decent guy and wouldn't have hurt Knock in purpose. Eventually, the situation died down and I tried to act as if nothing had happened, but it was never the same. On the following nights that I went into the bar, Nock was civil but cold towards me. On my last night in Pattaya, I spoke to Nock and told her I would be leaving the following day. I offered her a tip of 3,000 baht. I don't know why I did that. It was probably more to make me feel better than anything else, but she turned it down. She smiled, nodded at her head, and walked off. What a girl. This made me feel even more terrible. I'm now back home in my village, and as I write this story, I'm still confused as to how I could have got myself into that situation. I can only put it down to the power that most girls hold over men and are sometimes unaware of this power. To conclude, I hope your viewers don't judge me too harshly. There is a saying I've heard many times that goes, only in Thailand. I still think about Nock on a daily basis and dream of what could have been had I been of a similar age. Thanks for reading out my story, Peter. Well, like the guy says, there is an old saying, it's only in Thailand. Uh, it's just the human factor, isn't it? Feelings came out. It didn't go too far. You kind of feel a bit sorry for the young girl, but I've got nothing else to add on that story. Nice story. Okay, let's go into our final story for today. Here is a short story of an experience I had when I recently visited Thailand. On my first night of a 2-week holiday, I went into a bar on Soy Cowboy and I met this gorgeous girl called May. I'm guessing I am younger than most of your viewing audience, as at the time I was just approaching 30. May told me she was 24. She had long black hair and a beautiful tan. She looked like something out of a Bounty advert. So I asked May to sit with me. I bought her a ladies' drink, but if truth be known, I bought her several ladies' drinks, which weren't cheap. No matter, I was on holiday and sitting with this drop-dead gorgeous girl. She told me the usual. It was her first night in the bar, she'd never been out with a customer, and she was a little nervous speaking with me. Same old script. I just smiled and kept nodding in agreement with her, although I knew it was all BS. After about 45 minutes, I asked her if she would like to come out of the bar with me. She immediately said yes and told me the bar fine and how much she would expect me to pay her. So much for being her first night. So this experience went like clockwork. I paid the bar fine. She came back to my hotel. The aerobics were great. I gave her a tip for the taxi in the morning and she left. Nothing unusual so far. The next day, I was having lunch in my hotel when a guy sitting on the table next to me introduced himself and asked me if I was on holiday. We chatted for a while and he seemed like quite a decent guy. So we agreed to meet up in the evening and head out to some bars. To be honest, I was happy at the thought of some company. We met up later that night at about 9 p.m. and we decided to head over to Nana Plaza where the action is. Going around the bars, I had a lot of fun with different ladies buying them drinks and playing touchy-touchy, if you know what I mean. My new friend called Andy drank plenty, but I noticed he didn't get involved with any of the ladies, which I found very strange. When I asked him about this, he told me he had a full-time, serious Thai girlfriend and he didn't want to risk the relationship by playing around in case he was recognized by one of her friends. I told him he was very lucky that she allowed him to go out to Nana Plaza and drink. I thought all Thai girls were supposed to be extremely jealous. He told me that she's from a very serious family and that she wasn't allowed out after 9 p.m. at night. Apparently, some Thai parents are very strict with their daughters. This is the Thai culture, different to our own. He said he would meet her in the day, spend time with her, and normally say good night at about 7 or 8 p.m. at the latest. The next day was a Sunday. Andy told me that his girlfriend was coming over for lunch, and being on my own, he would like to invite me to join them. I thanked him and told him I would love to meet his girlfriend and have lunch with the pair of them. I think you know where this is going, right? So there we are, Andy and I, waiting for his girlfriend on Thai time. We're both extremely hungry and there's a buffet just 2 meters away from us, almost like torture. Eventually, the love of Andy's life appears. He introduces his stunning beauty to me. And yes, you've guessed it, it was May. From my very first night in Soy Cowboy. The very same May who had only just started in the bar, who had never been out with customers, but had made an exception for me. This was like being in the twilight zone. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have the heart to tell Andy, and the love of his life was basically a go-go dancer. But that wasn't the strangest thing. What was strange is the way that May acted. She was a perfect actress, lying so naturally and acting as though butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. When Andy introduced us, obviously not knowing that I had met her on a previous occasion, she shook my hand, smiled, and told me she was happy to meet me. The rest of the meal was extremely uncomfortable, not for Andy or the Oscar nominee May, but for me. Anyway, thankfully, we got to the end of the meal without drama, and Andy explained that him and May were off to a local mall, and May had wanted to do some shopping. I wondered at that point who would be picking up the tab. I kind of guessed it wouldn't be May. And basically, that's my story. Incredible as this seems, I'm guessing this sort of thing goes on in Thailand every day of the week. It actually blew me away. As for May, I'll keep my fingers and toes crossed for her and hope that Andy never goes into her go-go bar because they will both get the shock of their lives. I thought about going back into the go-go bar and finding May again on another day, but Andy was such a lovely guy, I just couldn't do it to him. I'm not sure if I should have told him about May. I just couldn't bring myself to face telling him. I hope he finds out one day so that he can find a decent girlfriend, a better girlfriend that he deserves. Yeah, quite comical, really. Not for Andy, but the story. But what's quite common is I've been out with guys who have taken a girl from a bar and they're walking down Sukhumvit somewhere, and the girl stops and starts talking to a complete stranger that I don't know, or my friend doesn't know, and then afterwards the guy who's taking the girl, my friend, will challenge the girl and say, "Well, who's that? Who are you talking to?" And the answer is always the same. Oh, it's a friend. It's the boyfriend of a girlfriend, and they invited me out for lunch together with them because I was on my own. Or it'll be, "Oh, he's only a friend." And in Thai culture, that doesn't happen. Regular Thai girls don't stop men in the street and have conversations with them. Okay, so quite comical, as I say. Right, that's it for this week, guys. I've got my mojo back now. I'm in the apartment, so the stories will continue every Saturday. But again, I am getting desperately short of stories. So if you're sitting on a story, please send it in. The other thing is, what I'm going to try and do is start to read out some different styles of stories. So any sort of a relationship story, because in any relationship, funny things happen, strange things happen. I was married for 33 years. I could tell you a dozen of my own stories. Maybe I should do. I don't know. But if you've got a story, if you're in a relationship, a regular relationship, not a bar girl story, and you've had a bit of a funny experience with a parents or another country or whatever, just something that you think will be quite amusing or interesting for people to hear, please send it in. My email address is always in the description. I'll change names if you want me to. I'll change dates, places, all that sort of thing. You'll be totally anonymous, and it should make for some good stories. Okay, so that's it once again, guys. I'll be back on Sunday with my live stream live from Bangkok. Until then, thanks for watching today, and I'll catch up with you real soon.